The ice-cold concrete floor hit my side with sudden force before I could react. Arrogant laughter echoed across the massive steel hangar while my hat tumbled across the polished ground. Two young maintainers believed they had just humiliated an helpless trespasser who did not belong near their precious jet aircraft. They had no idea that the quiet woman on the deck was scheduled to take command of their entire military squadron by noon. Dawn had barely broken over the flight line when I arrived alone in civilian clothes. A simple jacket and ball cap kept me warm while I walked through the bay doors to look at the strike fighters. I always visited the aircraft before meeting the aircrew because airplanes never pretend or lie about what they demand. That quiet moment centered my mind before taking responsibility for hundreds of lives. The previous evening, my husband had held my hands in our kitchen while I admitted my nervous feelings. He knew that 16 years of service had shaped my soul through endless deployments and heavy burdens. He reminded me that true leadership requires deep humility and genuine care for the people in your charge. His unwavering belief gave me strength as I drove toward the airbase with cold coffee in hand. My quiet routine shattered when Sergeant Miller stepped into my path with aggressive posture. His hands were stained with jet oil, and his expression showed total certainty in his misplaced authority. He ordered me to turn around immediately, while Corporal Hayes stood nearby, holding up a smartphone camera with a broad grin. I offered to leave peacefully, but Sergeant Miller lowered his shoulder and struck me with heavy force. The hard impact left a deep ache in my hip that would remain visible for 2 full weeks. Laughter spread toward the tool cage as several maintainers watched the foolish display unfold. My immediate instinct urged me to lash out or surrender to bitter tears on that cold deck. Instead, I gathered my scattered hat and stood up slowly without shouting a single word of anger. Pain was nothing new to a pilot who had survived combat and carried painful memories of loss. Years earlier, during a night attack mission over hostile territory, my backseat navigator Trent Sterling was fatally wounded during system failure. I managed to fly the damaged jet back to base alone, but my heart carried the heavy burden of his empty seat. Unfair rumors whispered that a shadow lingered over my flight record after that tragic night. A senior commander once told me politely that I would never reach the rank to lead a squadron. That cruel sentence could have broken my spirit, but I chose to transform doubt into motivation. I flew dangerous test missions and earned every promotion through relentless discipline and superior skill. 16 long years of dedicated service finally led me to this exact flight line where 2 men stood laughing. I walked past the rows of fighter jets toward the access control reader by the rear blast door. Corporal Logan guarded the security post with a clipboard and a nervous expression from watching the altercation. I pulled my military identification card from my jacket pocket and handed the plastic to him without saying anything dramatic. He slid the card into the scanner, expecting to see a civilian visitor clearance on his screen. The digital display flashed with bright text that made the young corporal freeze in absolute shock. The screen revealed my rank of lieutenant colonel alongside my official assignment as the incoming commanding officer. Color drained completely from his face as his clipboard clattered loudly onto the concrete floor. He stood at rigid attention with trembling hands, while realization spread across his wide eyes. A sudden heavy silence fell across the hangar as word traveled rapidly from person to person. The maintainers near the tool cage stopped talking, while Sergeant Miller turned pale when he saw the panic at the gate. Corporal Logan whispered an apology for failing to intervene during the unfair physical assault. I told him gently that fear in a young Marine can be overcome through practice and learning. Outgoing Colonel Harris rushed into the hangar office alongside Captain Cooper to manage the crisis. Colonel Harris offered to erase all records of the event so I could begin my command without public embarrassment. Captain Cooper immediately suggested discharging Sergeant Miller from military service to demonstrate maximum punishment. Both men wanted an easy fix, but I rejected both hiding the truth and destroying a young life. Real leadership demands facing difficult circumstances with absolute truth rather than personal vengeance. I instructed Gunnery Sergeant Bennett to document the entire incident accurately on the official record without distortion. Sergeant Miller deserved proportional disciplinary action for his misconduct while retaining the chance to learn and grow. Power should never be used as a weapon to destroy others simply because anger feels satisfying in the moment. The next morning arrived with clear skies and crisp wind across the parade grounds. 200 military personnel stood in formation, while I stepped forward wearing my decorated dress uniform. My gold aviator wings pinned over my heart served as silent proof of every hardship survived. I noticed Sergeant Miller in the second row staring with complete disbelief as he finally recognized my face. Sergeant Major Callahan called the formation to order before the official colors were passed into my hands. I addressed the assembled troops directly about mutual respect and the core purpose of our unit. I reminded everyone that every single member of the team belongs near these jets regardless of rank or background. The measure of our character is determined by how we handle moments when we discover we were wrong. 3 days later, I called Sergeant Miller into my office to discuss his future in the unit. He stood at rigid attention with deep shame clearly visible across his face as he admitted his failure. He acknowledged that treating any visitor with such disrespect was wrong regardless of who they were. I assigned fair disciplinary measures while assuring him that redemption was possible if he chose to change. Corporal Hayes also faced firm guidance regarding the videotape he had filmed during the assault. I explained that watching another human suffer and treating it as video entertainment reflects a dangerous lack of empathy. Both young men accepted their consequences with genuine commitment to become better guardians of our flight line. Over the following months, our entire squadron transformed into a cohesive team built on genuine respect and trust. One morning, I observed Sergeant Miller patiently guiding a fresh young recruit through maintenance procedures near the fighters. He stopped the recruit from rushing forward with gentle words instead of harsh anger or public humiliation. A meaningful look passed between us that required no spoken words to express mutual understanding. I felt profound pride, knowing that giving a person room for redemption creates lasting strength for everyone. Standing on the flight line at sunset, watching jet engines roar into the purple sky brought deep peace. I had fulfilled my long promise to honor fallen comrades by protecting the next generation of service members. When people try to define your worth before knowing your name, you do not need to shout or fight. Rise up quietly, brush off the dust, and walk forward with unwavering faith in your own truth.